In this video, we look at Khlysty, who had the most amazing and incredible religious views in Russia. And I respectfully invite you to subscribe to the channel, press the like button, and watch it until the end. The Khlysty or Khlystys, so-called whips in English translation, were an underground spiritual Christian sect which emerged in Russia in the 17th century. According to its own oral tradition, the sect was founded in 1645 by Danilo Filipov or Danil Filipovich, a peasant of Kostroma and a runaway soldier. He was said to have become a living god after the Lord of Hosts descended upon him on Gorodino Hill, Vladimir Oblast. He delivered 12 commandments to his disciples, which forbade sexual intercourse, drinking, and swearing. He later named as his successor Ivan Suslov, a peasant of Murom. Suslov, transformed by Filipov into a new Christ, acquired a following of 12 apostles, along with a woman who was given the title of Mother of God. The tradition relates that Suslov was crucified twice by the Russian authorities, but rose from the dead each time. The first historical references to the Khlysty are found in the writings of the Old Believers, a Christian community which resisted the 17th century reforms of the Russian state church. The Old Believers condemned the Khlysty as heretics, and warnings about them can be found in letters dating from around the 1670s. Suslov, who was the second successor, died around 1716, at which time Prokofy Lupkin became the new Christ. The oral tradition claims that Lupkin was the son of Filipov. Lupkin was a traitor and made use of his frequent journeys to places such as Uglich and Venov to organize secret assemblies for his followers. He encouraged his followers to worship in the manner of the Old Believers, such as by making the sign of the cross with 2 fingers instead of 3. But he also instructed them to attend the state church and take communion. Many Khlysty, including Lupkin's wife and son, even took monastic vows. Lupkin also made large donations to the church, which helped to protect the sect from persecution. The Khlysty renounced priesthood, holy books, and veneration of the saints, excluding the Theotokos. They believed in the possibility of direct communication with the Holy Spirit and of its embodiment in living people. Each of their leaders was a living God, and each congregation or ark had its own Christ and Mother of God, appointed by the overall leader of the sect. Furthermore, they believed that the Holy Spirit could descend upon any one of them during the state of ecstasy, which they attained during the ritual of radenie, translated as rejoicing. This ritual, which formed the focus of their worship, took place on holy feast days. The congregation would gather during the evening at a prearranged location, such as a member's house. They would remove their outer clothing and enter the sacred space dressed only in an undershirt. After a period of singing or chanting the Jesus prayer, some of the worshippers would feel the Holy Spirit come upon them and would begin dancing wildly, prophesying in unintelligible language. This would continue for half an hour or more until the dancers collapsed with exhaustion. Finally, they would share a sacramental meal of nuts, bread, pastry, and kvass. The Khlysty practiced an extreme asceticism in order to prepare themselves for the reception of the Holy Spirit into their bodies. They abstained from alcohol and often fasted for days or weeks at a time. Although marriage was permitted for practical purposes, because the help of a wife was indispensable for a peasant, it was a sin to engage in sexual intercourse, even with one's own wife. Connected with this mortification of the flesh was the practice of self-flagellation, which often accompanied the radenie rite. Accusations of sexual immorality pursued the sect from its earliest days and provoked numerous government investigations. In 1717, Lupkin and 20 other Khlysty were arrested in Uglich. They were held for 5 months, during which time they were interrogated and beaten. From 1733 to 1739, a specially formed government commission arrested hundreds of suspected Khlysty members, charging them with participation in sexual orgies and ritual infanticide. These accusations were repeatedly denied, but the commission nevertheless convicted over 300 people. They handed out sentences of hard labor, beatings, and mutilation of the nostrils and the tongue, and sent many of the prisoners into exile in Siberia or Orenburg. However, the Khlysty were undeterred and continued practicing. Some of those who had been sent into exile began to spread the movement through Siberia. In 1745, therefore, a new commission was formed, this time using far crueler methods of interrogation. This commission, although eliciting false confessions of sexual deviation and cannibalistic communion, and sending another 200 people into exile, likewise failed to stamp out the movement. Around 1750, some doctrinal changes took place within the sect, and they became known as the postniki or fasters. The leaders of the sect were now seen as personifications of Christ, rather than only playing host to his spirit. It was no longer considered possible for ordinary members to receive the Holy Spirit during radenie, although the ritual still held a central position in their worship. In 1840, a new splinter sect broke away from the postniki. Calling themselves Israelites, they shortly afterwards split again into Old Israel and New Israel. The beliefs of the latter group departed considerably from the traditional teachings of the Khlysts, and the sect still exists today in Uruguay. These schisms weakened the movement, and their numbers began to decline. By the start of the 20th century, estimates of the Khlysty's numbers ranged at around 100,000. Prior to the outbreak of World War I, there were reported to be around 20,000 new Israelites, 15,000 old Israelites, and 3,000 postniki in Russia. By the 1970s, there were only a few isolated groups remaining. Dear viewers, if you like the information presented in this video, I respectfully ask you to cooperate by liking, sharing, and subscribing to this channel. Thank you.